Hello, welcome to the first season of UP Doctoral Careers podcast, Discovering My Careers. Throughout this season, I and other PhD students from the University of Porto will talk to professionals from different work contexts about their careers based on what they have in common, the PhD degree. We hope that the sharing that will be done here can inspire us about the possible path that can be built, taking advantage of a realization of a PhD. I am Jonas Ferrigolo Melo, a student of information and communication on digital platforms, and I will drive this episode in company of our guest, Bruno Dupont. He is a research manager at Meaningful Interactions Lab from Leuven and research coordinator at Multidisciplinary Institute for Teacher Education from the University of Brussels, both universities in Belgium. Thank you in advance, Bruno, for your availability, and I welcome you to the UP Doctoral Careers podcast.
Thank you, Jonas.
Before we start this conversation, I would like to say that for me and for the listeners of this episode, it will be an opportunity to learn about research manager and research coordinator positions. Now that we have introduced ourselves, I raise the first questions. Bruno, what word immediately comes to your mind when you think of a PhD and why?
I think the first word that I have in mind is building. I mean, the action of building, because when you do a PhD, you are trying to build something. So you are trying to build, of course, your PhD research and also your PhD thesis, but you're also trying to build like a universe around it with the material that you're gonna find, that you're gonna gather in during your journey. And you're gonna find a lot of different materials. You're gonna find also a lot of different methods, a lot of different inspirations, and you're gonna try to aggregate them in something which gonna be, I mean, the building or the creation that you're gonna have at the end of your PhD. And something which I think is interesting is not seeing the PhD only as the thesis, but as a whole, yeah, as I said, universe around it, and a lot of things that, I mean, are extending your thesis, also are going to survive your thesis as a piece of work, because you are going to end up with a lot of new things and a lot of new insights about the world, and you're going to share it, I mean, also after your PhD.
That's cool. And now I'd like to know a little bit more about your journey as a PhD student. What was your background? I know that you have some background related to the language, studies of language, special Germanic language, and video games, gamifications. Tell us a little bit about your path in this way.
Yes, it's going to be a bit long, so
No
that's
problem.
always the
That's okay.
problem
It's okay.
when I begin to speak about it. But right at the beginning, indeed, I've been studying Germanic languages, so Dutch and German, and I've been already into media. So at that time, I didn't realize it, but I was also looking at how, for example, authors are going to use other media to speak about their work or to extend their work. And after so that was my master thesis in German literature. After that, I went into a job in academia, so a job of as a teaching assistant and as a research assistant also. And I had to choose. I mean, I had some time to choose a PhD topic. And at that time, I was reflecting a lot about intermedia, also about digital media, computer games being one type of digital media, but in general. And I decided to work on the intersection between digital media and literature. At that time, German literature, although I also studied other national, other languages. And gradually I moved on to also to studying those digital media, those kinds of digital media. And that was a time when there wasn't that much of a research in Francophone Belgium around video games. There were some people, but not any institution or any research group related to it. And there were some other people researching video games at the University of Liège at that time where I was. And we decided together to found a research group, Liège Game Lab, around video games, as an interdisciplinary topic of research. And that was the moment, I think, where I began gradually moving to game studies. Although at that time, I didn't know the term, and I would have said that I was a literary scholar or something like this, which for a part I still am. And then after completing my PhD, I went more and more into game studies because I applied in a university of applied sciences, or technical university, also in Liège, where they were searching for someone with a broad interest in research methods, scientific scholarly methods, and also with an interest for digital media in order to work, generally speaking, in research management. That was something new for me at that time. And so I went into that job, and I gathered some experience in research management along with my work into games and education, use of digital games in or for education, etc. So that was something I did for quite a few years. And after that, or during this, at that time, I also applied at KU Leuven, a job that I'm still in, as a research manager of a research project about the blurring lines between gaming, so video gaming, digital gaming, and gambling. And the idea was to coordinate that project, which is a project between different universities in Belgium, universities and technical universities as well. And the idea was to have someone with also a broad interest in video games and in research methods, and with a proficiency in Dutch, which I by chance had. So that was a bit my luck at that time to have Dutch as an asset. And then, I'm still working for KU Leuven. And next to it, my last move was to also add another part-time job, because I work part-time in Leuven, another part-time job at the Free University Brussels, where I do also, the name is research coordination. And the idea is to do research management at an institute level and not at the project level anymore. But for most of the things, it's a comparable job. And there, that's interesting, because there I also work in games and education, which was something I added to my assets with time, but which wasn't something I learned at the university or something I studied. So it was a side skill which became a kind of more general or more central skill.
Yes, and yeah, you just tell about a little bit about that, but what was the impact of choice of your doctoral course on your current job and your current career? And how was that's you just tell me how was this process of transformation to the professional life, transition to the professional life?
So I would say two things. So the first one is, it's the most obvious, is the fact that I've always focused on, digital media, but also digital methods. That's something
Mhm.
which is, highly valued for different reasons in contemporary academia and maybe in the contemporary world as a whole. So that asset was present quite at the beginning. And something which I used with time is the fact that I've been in a lot of positions in academia and outside of
Mhm.
academia as well. And this diversity maybe is something which is, I think, valued for research managers. And the fact that you can understand people speaking about things which are not from your discipline. I mean, your home discipline, if I could say. For example, something I don't use on a daily basis is the fact that I'm a literary scholar, but it helps me to understand people coming from, more scholarly disciplines, whereas the things that I've done in quantitative and qualitative research, they help me to understand people coming more from the scientific part, if we do a difference between scholar and scientific. So I can speak different languages in terms of discipline, and that's something I've learned with time and something I'm constantly learning, I think.
Yeah, you speak many languages in scientific, that is like you said, but you actually speak many languages also. You speak like 5 or 6 languages.
Yeah, that's also something.
Yeah,
That's also something I like outside of
yeah.
working. That's a hobby, learning languages, and I love hearing people speaking other languages, trying, for example, to understand what terms you would use in Portuguese to say something. I don't speak Portuguese, but I love the sound of the language. And this openness to other contexts, to other languages, to other situations also, because academia is very different depending on the country and the continent you are in. And this
Yes.
openness is important for my job, but also for networking in general. I love learning about people, learning how people do things, what they think about, for example, their subjects, their topics of research, what they use for methods, and also the typicalities of the languages they use as applied to their work.
Oh. And could you explain what the activities of a research manager and the research coordinator are?
That's interesting because there are always two answers in life. The first one is it's always different. The second one is you still can find some
Same.
similarities. So I'm going to go for the second one, but saying that
All
the
right.
proportion is different. So, for example, I've also been in research management outside of universities or in a military university, which is very different. That's a different context, and they have also another way of seeing what research management is. So it's also an enrichment to be at different places. But in general, you have like a lot of different things which are always related to managing people or things or operations. So, for example, you would follow projects by other people. So you need a bit of, I mean, humility maybe, because you're gonna follow work by other people and try to find ways of financing them, of doing the administrative work around them, to also help with the scientific part without being the scientific center of the project. So that's something you're going to do, following projects of peers. Also, you have a lot of a proportion of management, people management. So you manage young scholars. You help them also reaching goals, writing things, trying to get their PhD ready, for example. That's something I value a lot. But you also, and that's typical of that job, manage people who are more senior academics. So you don't have any power on them, but you still have a management role, and you must get them working together as academics, but also with younger scholars, with profiles from outside of academia, because we in projects nowadays we also have a lot of collaborations with stakeholders from outside of academia. So you get people working together, and you also write a lot. You write articles, scientific or scholarly articles, which is the basic job in academia, but you also write a lot of other stuff, for example, project applications. So for projects for yourself and other people, or for peers, as I said, because you're going to be the helping hand or the helping mind, if the word does exist, behind a lot of projects. And this idea of writing applications is also something, I mean, it's an addition for me to writing papers, so academic papers, because it's another type of getting things reflected on, of getting things done, and of speaking about research. So you don't write it the same way you write, for example, papers for journals, and that's something I also value. And maybe yeah, and something, I mean, you shouldn't forget, and something which is also important to me is the networking part. So you will have to build consortiums, so groups of people, researchers working together on topics. And those consortiums, they can consist of people from your home university, but also from other universities, other countries. So you have to have an attention for other people and try to see who you can get people to work together. And what I like, I mean, in the job is finding the place or the moment when something clicks, when you find, okay, that project is going to be interesting if you put it forward with this perspective, if you use this approach to, I mean, manage a problem, that an issue that you're going to have in the project. And it's the same also for writing, because I mean, I do write papers less, for example, than PhD students, because they are a lot more focused on their own research. But I'm still involved in the process, and I like, I mean, bringing a little rotation, a little movement into the things, and seeing, okay, that's the moment your research is going to be also interesting for other people, other disciplines. And I would call it my, I mean, my contribution, my little contribution to their work.
Ah, cool. And your our last question is, what suggestion would you give to current or future students and recent PhDs who are listening to us in preparations for getting into a new into a job market, in especially in kind of position that you are?
That's a good question, because it's always difficult to, I mean, to make recommendations. So my
Yeah.
first recommendation would be, I mean, don't listen to people too much. I mean, you should listen to people when they speak about their work, when they speak about themselves, when they speak about what they like. As I said, that's something, I mean, networking is very important, but don't take their judgment on your work too seriously, because for example, some people, in my experience, tell that specialization is something which is very important, and indeed it is. I mean, it is for a lot of professions, and it is for a lot of jobs, academic jobs. But at the same time, there is also room for a bit of eclecticism, or a bit of working at something very with a high intensity, and then going to another project with the first project still like a subroutine in mind. So there are different approaches to academic work, and I assume, I hope, and I think they all have the little spot, the little place in the environment of research. And you should find your way of looking at things, and your way of conceiving of your job. For example, I mean, something I've done before is working in education, and then moving to more social sciences in general. And then no, I'm back into education with a social sciences background, which wasn't something I had at the beginning. So it helps to conceive of your career as something diverse, I would say, and not as a monolith. And also, if you want to work in my kind of job, to be able to see that diversity in other people. So to value that other people that they consist of a lot of pieces put together, a lot of aspects, a lot of facets, and that all these facets have something to bring into projects, into relationships, into collaborations. And yeah, seeing diversity in people, in situations, is something I would recommend. And I had another recommendation, because I took some notes for this
Yes.
interview, but I'm still searching for it. I am something. I wanted to add is this idea of side projects. If you are the kind of person liking side projects, then go for it. It's interesting for you. It's going to be fulfilling in a sense of, realizing your potential or realizing your dreams maybe, and it's gonna maybe in the from the perspective of someone else, your side project is going to be your first asset or your central characteristic. So people tend to interpret your trajectory in a different way than you do, and if you can, yeah, display a lot of facets and value all those facets instead of trying to erase them, then you're gonna gain something, I think, on the long term.
Cool. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you. And with that, we conclude this episode of Discovering My Careers. To anyone listening, we thank you for your interest and invite you to listen to the next episode soon. Until then, to support the process of exploration your careers, we suggest that you explore the resource of the UP Doctoral Careers platforms and use, whenever necessary, the career and employability service of your faculty and the University of Portugal. I end this episode by thanking the team of Inovação Educativa for the technical support with the recording of this episode and the UP Doctoral Careers team for the experience of getting to know and sharing the story of a PhD journey. Thank you, Bruno, and see you soon.
Thank you, Jonas.